And if you want to be super successful and be an entrepreneur, ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice, right? Are you willing to go on a 2-week sprint where you cut out everything and all the distractions, go heads down, ask people how to be great at something, and then put your head down and do the work? Getting a customer, you're essentially promising them something. You're making a promise. Hey, you're going to eat here and feel happy and satisfied and love the food, right? You're going to use our product and it's going to make your life better in some kind of way. It's going to make your work better in some kind of way, right? It's going to make you feel better, produce more, do better, right? And that's the promise you're making to that person, right? And so it's then important for you to put as much thought into how you're going to make sure that every single person that you encounter as a customer or client feels like you delivered on that promise. And if you do that successfully and then equip them with the right tools, then they will do a lot of the marketing for you. Don't take no breaks, I just do it. Just watch me work, I prove it. I was born with a gift, got the blueprint top.
I think the coolest thing about hosting a show where I interview and feature entrepreneurs and founders and investors is the amazing people I get to meet on a daily basis. And not just meet amazing people, but the things I get to learn from them. See, as an entrepreneur myself, as a founder, I have challenges when it comes to finance, marketing, when it comes to building a business. But this show also serves to me as an encyclopedia of learning from people. And the guest I'm about to have today encompasses all things, right? So as a founder, you need business coaching, you need finance, you need marketing, you need a city to support you. The guest I'm about to bring today does all these things. He is a serial entrepreneur. He owns multiple businesses. He also works with a credit union. He works with a marketing firm. He even works with city advocacy for entrepreneurs. I don't know how he has enough time in the day to do all these things. The guest I'm about to bring today is the kind of person who I call on a regular Tuesday, and he tells me, I'm in Egypt. I'm like, what are you doing in Egypt on a Tuesday? And he tells me, I'm actually here for a conference. So the man I'm about to bring today is no other than the one and only Eze Redwood. What's up, Eze? How you doing?
Welcome to the city of entrepreneurs, brother.
Yes. I'm in your city. This is where you run everything. For those who don't know, where are we right now, Eze?
So we're in Kansas City. It's a great place, but it's like a lot of places with a lot of potential, a lot of entrepreneurs who are trying to build the future, and we're just trying to help. We're just trying to help the Kansas Cities, the Gary, Indianas, the Michigan cities to be great and create the roadmap for how they can, create the people who create the future.
Right. And I think the most fascinating thing about you, Eze, is that you have your hands in everything. And I was just talking about, I don't know how you have time in a day to do all these things. How were you connected to credit union? So I'll tell this funny story too, which I don't know if I told on the show, but I called up Vicky from the chamber, and I was like, Vicky, I'm trying to get a loan. I'm trying to get connected with like a credit union. She was like, yeah, we got Eze Redwood on our team who does that. I'm like, wait, first of all, Eze is on your team, and second of all, Eze works for a credit union. Didn't connect. I'm like, let me text you and find out. What is the importance of where we are and how did you get connected with this?
Yeah, so I started out on the board, and I saw that the credit union really cared about creating a different future for communities, and they knew, much like we know, that it takes an entrepreneur fighting that fight and basically creating something from nothing in order to create opportunities for their family and the community, right? And that's something that a lot of times gets left behind, is like someone has to get a chance, right? And especially if they're pulling themselves up from regular 9-to-5 work or from paycheck to paycheck life, like it's a lot like birthing a child, right? It's hard, right? There's no book that tells you all the hardships you're going to have to navigate, right? It's expensive, right? It's emotionally draining. And so for me, it was like, how can I help support one of the entities that's at the forefront leading, that access to capital for entrepreneurs and taking chances on people that most institutions might see as too big of a risk.
Right. I mean, also with what I do with video production, some institutions might see that as a big of a risk. But being able to understand how to be able to put your, I would say, tell your story, but financially is very important, and that's the key to what you do. And I definitely want to go in and check a little bit more what you do when it comes to strategy. Yeah,
come on, let's go get it. Let's do it.
I just make it look easy like ABC. I'm on it 24/7, 25/8. I just pick up the pace and I violate. I eat it all up like a dinner plate.
Hey, what's up, good people? Welcome back to another Student Entrepreneur episode. I am your host, Zeke Wanganga. And on this show, as you know, we're bringing amazing entrepreneurs, founders, so we can learn how they start their business from 0 to 100 so that you can learn and be inspired, and hopefully you can start your journey as well. Now, before we get into the show, I want to give a big shout out to Casey Sourcelink for sponsoring this episode. If you're a founder, you are a small business owner, and you need resources when it comes to funding, when it comes to business coaching, whatever you need, go to caseysourcelink.org to find the info. Okay, now that we've paid the bills, let's get back to the show. The entrepreneur I'm about to bring on today is someone that actually inspires me. I've known about him for a couple years. His resume is longer than the term and conditions you have to click to get to your app. Now, he's a serial entrepreneur. He works with a credit union, marketing. He does everything that entrepreneurs need to succeed. So this episode is going to be useful for entrepreneurs who are in their early stage, because if you need funding, marketing, if you need to build your business, this person I'm going to bring on today is going to give you some gems. So help me make welcome the one and only, the serial entrepreneur, who I don't even know how he does it. If he has started 4 hours in a day, but he makes it happen. The one and only Eze Redwood. How you doing, Eze?
Hey, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
Good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks. Yeah. I'd like to point out for the audience,
yes,
that these guys are a little bit like they've had a long day. But they started with me after I'd already been going 2 hours, and they skipped my last 4 meetings. Y'all have only done 3 meetings today.
I don't even know how you do it. That's the thing. It's like, we just flew for 3 hours and you still going. Like, I had to get me some juice to get me going. Because I'm like, I ain't got that kind of energy.
Did you get some kin? Is that what you did for
the
folks?
Usually, I open can after I introduce and like maybe 30 minutes in. But because I've had a long day with you, I'm about to start off early because I need it.
Oh, okay.
It's like a champagne. It pops.
Yeah, it is. It got the bubbles.
So now that we got Ken out of the way, let's get to you, Eze Redwood.
Okay.
The man who has started for hours in the 24-hour day. Tell people who you are, what you do, and how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, really, my name's Eze Redwood. It's pronounced Eddie with the Z, so Eze. I really had the background in just solving problems, right? And so regardless of what my job actually was, whether it was, being one of the youngest ever credits managers at Wells Fargo, or being in the trades department at State Street, which is a global investment bank, or, no matter what the job function was, like, I took my job and I tried to say, okay, so now that I've mastered that, how can I solve problems for the organization internally, for our clients externally, no matter what. And that helped translate into what I did after kind of corporate, which was really looking at how I can solve problems for cities.
Right.
How I can solve problems for nonprofits. So how do we better achieve our impact? How do we implement a strategy that can really deliver on, the promise we're making to, those who fund us, as well as to the people we're serving.
Right.
And then on the business side, how can we grow our small business and really create deliver on the promise that we're making to our customers. Right. And in doing so, grow. And so, that's a lot of what I do. Is I say I'm a glorified problem solver.
Yeah, I mean, you solve the problems well. I'll say this. The first time I heard about you, Eze, I was like, who is this Nigerian man in Kansas City who's doing all these things? Because your name is Eze, which in Igbo is Eze. So a lot of people don't know this. We are from the same state. And I found out.
Shout out to Abia State.
Abia State, yes. People don't know that because I called you one day. I was like, where are you? So this is another thing. I keep saying this on the show. Is like, I called you one day and you're like, I'm in Nigeria. I'm like, wait, what? I just saw you 2 days ago. Hold up, wait a minute. How you end up in Nigeria in 2 days?
Oh, man.
I'm like, so where you at? He's like, I'm in Abia State. Like, wait, hold up, wait a minute. That's right next door to where I'm from. So tell the people a little bit about your journey being a Nigerian. I was Nigerian American, and also being in this industry, to give us a little bit of history, because people don't know that a little bit about you.
Yeah. So I was born in Minnesota, which is the most anticlimactic thing ever. But they're like Minnesota. There's Nigerians. So yeah, there's actually a lot. There's a good amount.
There's a lot of Nigerians in Minnesota.
Yeah.
We're everywhere, actually. That's the thing.
Yeah. No, for sure. It's my dad's from Nigeria.
Yeah.
He didn't really lean into the Nigerian culture. He didn't speak evil in the house because he didn't want me to get discriminated against, which people discriminate for a lot of reasons, especially how you speak, right?
That's true.
Even having a Southern accent and being on the coast is a great way to, you see the difference in how people interact with you. They kind of naturally assume that whatever you maybe aren't at the same level as they are just because of how you speak.
Right.
And you saw that across all races, across, all ethnicities, etc.
And I think that's a problem too, because even if you're smart and you are professional, because when you sound, people just have that first interaction with you and they have that, regardless of what you say, they just keep that in mindset going on. But yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I mean, I went through corporate, I came out, started a few of us started a tech company together, had some successes there. There came a point where people expected us to start being the next big thing, and we realized that pressure is a lot heavier than the pressure when people expect you to fail.
Right.
And so ended up having some stuff happen there, and we started some restaurants as a result.
Right.
And then a lot of there's no way to drown your problems out like starting a restaurant, because you'll have a lot to keep you busy, but yeah, we started some restaurant, Wings Cafe. So we had the fortune of being able to create a brand and keep it going for over a decade now with multiple locations. But really what I realized throughout that process of starting the restaurants is that there weren't any great sources of mentorship. There weren't any great at that time communities for you, right? And I recognized the importance and value of that. And sometimes it felt like you were just out on the island by yourself. And so what I had to do was transition into a place where I had to humble myself and learn all the lessons myself from whoever I could, and then filter out the good information from the bad information myself. And I wanted to create communities for others so that they didn't have to go through that by themselves. So that was where 2030 CEO started, originally Under 30 CEO in the Kent State market. That's where a lot of the initiatives we did, the novel innovation conferences, the accelerator, all of those things came from trying to build what we didn't have when we were building.
Yeah. I mean, I think for me though, it was fascinating, just because I know you have it's a global leadership fellowship that you're a part of.
Oh, yeah. There's a couple of international diplomacy fellowships.
How did you get into that, and what is that about? What was that process getting into that? What's that about?
Yeah. This is interesting. The different ones had different processes. The US-Japan fellowship which is really like a family. They're amazing. Shout out to the USJLP community. Them, you kind of had to not know people, but you had to catch somebody's attention. Right. And someone had to put their name on the line to recommend you. I think. And fortunately, I had someone do that. There's a couple others where it was like a crazy interview process. But fortunately I was able to make it through. And I'm just excited for having those families, like the Gaber Fellowship, Shafiq Gaber Fellowship, where we went in and did a lot of great work in Egypt and the stateside here. That was a great opportunity and a great family. So there's a lot of those kinds of opportunities.
Right. So I know that for you, Eze, there you have a lot of hands in a lot of things, and you kind of talked about, because there was none of that when you were starting out, you felt a need to be able to be a part of those things, right? So I think for me and everyone who's watching today, I want to learn about the financial side of things, right? How did you get into that, and how did you become working with a credit union? You want to be making decisions not just teaching people, but you are one of the people who will hear people's pitches. So tell us a little bit about that, Pat, like what people miss when it comes to that side of financial, because that's a huge part of being a founder.
Yeah. Well, one, I'm just fortunate to partner with a great organization.
Right.
Originally I started out on the board of the credit union, and shout out to Holy Rosary because they're doing great work. So, there were four things that I realized that entrepreneurs really needed to understand, but didn't in a lot of cases. Right. So the first is the financings, right? So not only do entrepreneurs usually need access to capital, they need the money management skills to do the right thing with the capital when they have it. Right. So whether they make the capital or get the capital through loans, family, friends, investment, whatever, how do you deploy that capital within your business so that you have a higher chance of success, right? Because it's easy to waste money, especially if you haven't had it a lot or haven't had that responsibility. So cash flow management, understanding to put things back in the business instead of just taking the owner draws off of it. A lot of those small things, but then also how do we get money to the people who need the money to grow, who have the expertise, who have the discipline, who have the work ethic, but they need the capital, right? And so that was one of the things I really wanted to attack. And there's other things that help businesses grow and scale. Having a sense of community, right? Having those mentors in that community to guide you forward. Having a city that supports you, right? That's a big one. And then, understanding the operations side. How do you, operate your business effectively? How do you, acquire your customers? And ultimately, how do you market? How do you deliver on the promise that you made to your customer when they signed up with you?
Right. I think so. I know for this show, for me personally, I want to be able to go section by section, just because I know you have finance, you have business development, you have marketing, and you have government and agencies that help you do that. Yeah. So on the financial side, right? Because I know what finances, you have to tell a story with your money. How you make money, how you deploy that money, how does your money go back into your business? If you were to say maybe three things that most entrepreneurs and founders miss when it comes to getting loans or talking to the financial side of people, what are three things you think they should be focusing on that they miss out on because they are too focused on either making money or telling their story and also not communicating better to financial institutions?
Yeah. So the three things that I think, entrepreneurs miss when they're trying to get money, whether it's from investors or from banks, et cetera. One, what have you done to demonstrate that you can deliver? Right? So often we, go to people who are giving us their money, whether it's a bank, right? They're giving their members money, right? Or it's individuals, investors, investment groups, individuals, angels. And we're saying, hey, believe in me. Right? Okay. So, if someone was asking you for a loan, you'd be like, all right, cool. Yeah. What have you done that shows me that you can deliver on what you're saying you can do? Right. That's the best way to prove that you can do something is by at least taking the first couple steps to prove that A, you have the right business, B, you know how to get people to buy whatever it is you're selling, and then C, they're willing to buy at the price that you are willing to sell it at, and then D, that you can deliver. Right. And so if you haven't thought through those things, then maybe you should think through that before you try to sell someone on giving you money for an idea. Right. Have the proof. Be able to there's a huge difference between someone who comes to a bank or to an investor and says, hey, I have this great idea, lend me some money or give me some money, and someone who comes in and says, hey, I had this idea. I put it in motion. Even though it's at a small scale, I got X number of sales. Those people are super happy. They start recommending me to other people in the industry. I have great reviews and I need money to scale that up now so I can reach more people. Right. You see the difference in that?
Difference with that. Yeah. Cause it's something to say, I have a vision. I have no one who cares about this. I'm going to say, I have a vision I've actually tested. That's one thing we talk about on this show is test your market. And find out there's people who actually need this solution. Now, I want to shift a little bit of the gear to business development because I know what makes businesses successful is being able to replicate it in different cities or different ways. How can you package your business in a way where it can be reproduced, in different, if you wanted to push it from one let's say, city to the next? How do you make that happen for you? Because I know you've done that for different businesses. How do you make sure that a business can run like a McDonald's, where it's the same thing every single time? If you come in, you have an expectation and you're able to meet that. How do you make that happen for businesses?
Yeah, I think a big piece of any business that often gets overlooked is the processes and systems. Right? Like, I'm a big believer in when you are getting a customer, you're essentially promising them something. You're making a promise. Hey, you're going to eat here and feel happy and satisfied and love the food, right? You're going to use our product and it's going to make your life better in some kind of way. It's going to make your work better in some kind of way, right? It's going to make you feel better, produce more, do better, right? And that's the promise you're making to that person, right? And so it's then important for you to put as much thought into, how you're going to make sure that every single person that you encounter as a customer or client, feels like you delivered on that promise. And if you do that successfully and then equip them with the right tools, then they will do a lot of the marketing for you.
Yes.
Right. And yeah, exactly. And they'll help you significantly and they'll be brand champions. But if you don't, then you just lost someone and they're going to be a negative reference or an indifferent reference, which is a negative reference if you want someone to change their behavior. Right. Because as entrepreneurs, we battle bigger entities in our space. We battle people not knowing us. And then we also battle inertia, right? Because they have to change something that they're doing in order to go with us. And there's uncertainty tied with that. There's inconvenience tied to that. And we're saying, hey, trust us. Trust us to be better than whatever you're doing right now. And the inconvenience that will come with making that change. Right. And so that's really where the systems come into play.
So let me give you an example, right? Because I know a lot of founders, a lot of small businesses don't have the budget that the big corporations have. Let's say I have 2-3 people or even just me in my company right now. But I want to be able to make my business sustainable. I want to make it replicable. What are some systems that I can put in place so that way when I get 10 employees, I can be able to replicate the same thing and the same thing, and it keeps working that way for right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the first thing that entrepreneurs really need to do when they want to grow and scale is they've got to figure out how they can remove themselves from the business just enough so that they can work on the business instead of in the business. Right. So what does that look like? Well, you have two types of tasks usually as a founder. You have the tasks that have to be done for the business to operate. And then you have the tasks that need to be done to move the business forward. Right. So one's reactionary or preemptive and one's future creating, proactive. True. Right. And so, it's helpful to say, okay, how can I get people to take care of some of these actions that just have to be done, but aren't driving value in of themselves. They're just maintaining so that I can work on the bucket of actions that drive us forward. Right. And so, that looks like having assistants or virtual assistants to handle the busy work. That looks like, if you're more of an operations minded entrepreneur, then, stay in your sweet spot and try to find a partner who is that visionary, who is that salesperson, who is that creative, who's that person who can handle the stuff that, is outside your zone of genius. Right. And vice versa. If you're a visionary, think about how you can, find someone to partner with you and help you that is more of that operations minded systems person.
So let me ask you this. This is a kind of a random question because I know that you're on a lot of boards.
Oh man.
How many boards are you on and why is it so important to be able to serve on different boards?
Man, you would ask me that, wouldn't you? I don't know. I've tried to roll off a good number of them. It's just like the missions are really amazing for some of them, and I get really excited about trying to lend strategy help, because that's what I do. Is ultimately I do strategy. I do strategies to accomplish hard things, whether that's growth or creating efficiencies or solving a problem. I think maybe like 6 or 7 right now.
7. Wow, that's a lot of boards. I'm only on 1, and I'm trying to figure that one out.
Yeah.
So 7, 6 board, that's a lot. So let's shift a bit. Let's go to the small business side. Because I know you're someone who has started different small business. You even have like a vending machine business that you sold.
Yeah.
Talk to us about starting businesses, going to selling it, or what is that? Talk to us about that small business setup. Like, because I know you bought it, you sold it. How do you make a business in a way where you can actually sell it? How do you get to that point where you want to sell a business? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think there's a few key things that people need to understand if they want to, build a business that can be sold, right? The first is, can it run without you, right? Can you plug and play someone else and it runs just the same and makes the same money? Right. And if you haven't developed the systems, like the procedures, the schedules, and have the relationship set up in such a way where, anyone can step in and, and fill in that void of you not being there, and like it's still making money, then you don't have a business you can sell. Right. And then secondly, you really have to package it up in a way that makes it make sense. Right. So, what does that mean? That means, like, can you optimize it? Can you find ways to put everything that's in your head into standard operating procedures or a guidebook or video learning lessons or whatever, so that someone can step in and pretty quickly understand how you do what you do. Right. And then third, are you able to have the relationship set up in a way where they're willing to work with whoever is there and not just tied to you?
Yes. Because I think most customers call like, hey, where is the owner here today? He told me he was going to be here, and he told me he's going to give me 2 bottles of wine. And if they keep doing that, you don't have a scalable business. How does that run? So I think, I know personally, I'm not at a point where I can scale my business, but I'm trying to get there, where it's like I can be able to have this being sold and someone can take the business and continue, right? So, but let's shift a little bit now. Let's go.
And then maybe one other thing I would add to that is, if you're trying to build a business to be sold, you still have to think about, one, does it make dollars, right? And that means on taxes, right? So that means you got to actually claim money that you're making on taxes, and then just work with a tax strategist to make it make sense for you on the back end instead of underreporting how much you make. So that's first and foremost. A lot of entrepreneurs try to take the shortcut on the front end, but if you go to a bank or if you go to someone who's going to try to acquire you potentially, they don't see that you make that much money. And so why would they buy you, or why would they give you that money? Right? Show the money you're making and then get with the tax strategist to make it make sense for you on the back end.
So before I even go change subject, let's talk about business accounts, personal accounts.
Yeah.
I think a lot of founders, entrepreneurs, small business owners, they miss this part where they merge them together as opposed to separating them.
Yeah.
Talk to us why that is important and how to do that in an effective way for especially investors, especially for banks who want to invest, give you a loan. So why is that important, and how can you start doing those steps?
Yeah, if you start making money, you'll likely, at some point consider transitioning to an S corp tax structure. If you do,
why is that important?
Because it saves you from paying the FICA taxes, which is your Social Security tax, your stuff like that. Right. It saves you from paying that 13.5%, that full 13.5% on everything you make, right?
True.
But because if it's together, the LLC, you're paying that on everything.
That's true.
Versus if you transition to an S corp, you pay yourself a certain amount. And that gets the FICA taxes, the full FICA taxes. And then, everything else you can, either, kick out as a distribution, as a dividend or whatever. So, I don't want to give tax advice. So, y'all talk to your tax strategist. Talk to your tax strategist.
Get an accountant.
Get an accountant. And it's going to cost you a little bit of money. I got a surprise for you. It's going to cost you some money, but it's also going to save you even more.
That's true.
Right? That's true. Don't be cheap. That's not the place to be cheap. You can be cheap on whatever else you want to do.
Financials,
but don't be cheap there.
Right.
Don't be cheap.
That's a huge thing too, because I had to learn that. I used to do, and I'm going to say this. No shame on TurboTax. No shame on Block. But you got to have your own tax person.
Yeah, because those aren't tax strategists.
That's true.
Right? Those are tax preparers. Those are tax filers. But like, that's not a Marquita Miller with 5-star tax. That's not like anyone there's these companies that all they do is find effective tax strategies that help minimize your obligations. And people think that the IRS is out to get them. No, like the government uses taxes as a way to incentivize people to do what they want them to do. Right. So right now, like the government wants you to create small businesses because they understand that 70% of the new jobs in America come from small businesses. Now our cities don't know that yet.
Which we're going to get to.
Not all of our cities act like that.
To get to that.
But the government does. And so they incentivize people to build businesses. And they say, hey, if you're building a business, we'll help you out by taking away some of this tax burden.
Yeah.
But you got to follow the plan. In order to follow the plan, you got to know the plan, which means you got to create a plan, which means you got to talk to the tax strategist.
Right. I think that on its own is a huge part of being a business owner and a founder. My first year in business, I used the TurboTax. It's the H&R Block. And that was a bad mistake. They're not supposed to do this show, so I can say whatever I want to say.
Yeah.
But it was until I got a tax person, like an accountant, who helped me. Hey, this is what you're making. This is what we can do for you. Mm-hmm. You can talk with them. They can help you because they're there to help you. Mm-hmm. I think that's what every entrepreneur and founder needs to look into.
Yeah.
If you don't have an accountant or a tax person, you will losing money every single year.
Mm-hmm.
So get that figured out. Because with that, you can actually know your exact numbers when you go to the banks, to the investors, because their goal is to help you get to success.
Yeah.
Now, I'm glad you talked about the government because I want to shift to that.
One thing to say, your CPA may or may not be a tax strategist. Mm. Just because someone's a CPA or just because someone is a tax preparer does not mean that they're a tax strategist. And just like with anything, you have people who are more conservative. You have people who are great for certain sectors and not great for others. And so you really have to do your due diligence to understand who's going to be a great person for getting the best tax efficient strategy for your sector.
How do you do that? How do you know who is a tax strategist and who is just a CPA? Is there a way to know that? I
mean, a great way to do it is to set up meetings with several of them and ask each one, like, hey, what tax strategy should I be taking advantage of given my business to deflect some of the taxes that I'm going to be potentially paying?
Cool.
And then you let them talk and you compare it. If it's well, you've just got to pay taxes. That's what you got to do. Then they're not tax strategists. Nothing against them. They might be a great accountant, a great bookkeeper, but bookkeepers keep a register. That's their job, right? It's not their job not getting creative with tax strategies, right? You gotta, listen to those answers and that'll help you understand, who's going to really be creative about and put in the work, put in the research and be creative about understanding how I can best deflect some of the, offset some of the taxes that I would otherwise be paying on the revenue I'm making.
Right. Makes sense.
And so that might be, I don't want to give tax advice.
We gotta leave that for
I'm about to leave it there.
Check out Eze Redwood if you need that. Personal conversation if needed.
I got recommendations.
But let's shift gears a little bit. Let's go to the government side of things, right?
Yeah. And also as a side note, I will say that there are people in the market who can help you, right? If you're looking for places to go for tax strategies, you have creative planning. You have Carlton Dennis with a K, Carlton with a K. You have Melanin Money and Carter Cofield with a C. You have all these people who are on social who you can literally plug into and listen to them, and they do free workshops and they do challenges and stuff like that. Like plug in. And then that'll give you enough basis to take to, whoever you're working with and say, hey, what about this? What about the Augusta rule? What about, what I'm doing with, some of the STRs?
Yes. Augusta. Yeah. That's on that. While we're giving plugs, I'll plug my personal tax strategies.
Okay.
I got Melvin Gatson.
Okay.
He's the one that put me through.
Okay.
He's a genius.
Okay.
So if you want his contact, let me know. I'll put him through. He's a genius in that. But let's shift gears a little bit. Let's go to the government side.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna be real with you.
Shout out 5-star tax.
Yeah, shout out. Put him on.
The top, that's 1, not 2 or 3. This real life, baby, don't make believe. I just make it look easy like ABC. I'm on it 24/7, 25.
So, Eze, this is kind of a day in the life of Eze. Following you around to see all the things that you do in Kansas City. So, where are we right now?
Yeah, so right now we're at the Blue Symphony office on 63rd. So Blue Symphony does marketing. They're a all Black owned marketing firm. It's a pretty diverse group, but the owners are Black. And one of the things that I like is that they're able to understand and connect with a lot of the communities that are facing some of the challenges we're trying to solve, like crime. And so, for me, you can't have people who don't understand the mindset of the people we're trying to change to reduce crime, trying to solve those problems through campaigns. And that's one of the reasons why I'm here, is because we're talking about how can we use marketing and custom software as both a tool to enable some of the platforms, that are needed to solve crime, but then also do the activations and the marketing for that.
Sweet.
So, but they're a great company.
Yeah.
They do custom software to make life easy for businesses, for governments, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I've worked with Blue Symphony on a couple of projects. They do amazing work. So let's head in and kind of see, the
Yeah,
space.
let's go.
All right, this is awesome. This is actually my first time at the Blue Symphony space. I have worked with them on a couple of projects. So tell me this, before we even get started, what would you say when it comes to marketing that most organizations or most companies or most founders miss when it comes to especially early stage people, founders?
Yeah, I think that a lot of times founders get so caught up in the product itself or the service itself that they don't realize that they have to take the same creativity and energy to make sure people find out about it. Sure. And they have to earn that following, right? So if you're a tech company, if you're a restaurant, how can you design a solution that makes people really feel excited to share that product or service? They should feel like they're doing their friends or their coworkers or their staff a favor
giving them this
by telling them about you,
right.
what your company and what you do. And
right.
I don't see that. The second thing I don't see a lot of is entrepreneurs understanding that when they make a sale, they're making a promise to their customer that they're going to provide this experience or they're going to solve this problem. And that means that once that customer comes into your business as a client, you have to deliver, which means your operations is a part of your marketing, right? If you exceed the expectations that you set in that sales process and you over deliver, then it's easy to turn that person into a brand champion and they do the marketing for you. Right. And if you don't, you now have a significantly harder time ahead of you because anyone who knows them is going to go, hey, did you work with that company? Yeah, it was all right. Well, all right doesn't change me off of the status quo because inertia is the enemy. The enemy is what are we doing right now? And are you going to make me change what I'm doing? And you just don't get that right. If it's all right.
No, that makes sense. I mean, it's basically people trusting your product. I always give an example of McDonald's or a Lamborghini or the main brands. If you go to McDonald's, the McMuffin is going to be the same every single time. There's a reason for that because of expectation. And they deliver to you, and that's what they promise, right? And I think it's also important, especially me being, what you just said, I think it's super important that founders target their product, not just talking about a product, but making it feel like it's a favor for someone to recommend them because it's so useful.
And like a big piece of that is systems, right? Like no one thinks about systems but systems are how you deliver on the promise you made your potential customer.
Right.
Systems are how you activate them to tell more people after they've worked with you and they're a believer. Systems are really what gets you out into the community and have people feel an emotional connection to your brand. And that goes for anything that touches marketing, because at its core, marketing is how can you influence someone who doesn't know your brand, your company, your initiative, your government department to feel a certain way and to act differently, because they have to take action in a different manner than they would have otherwise. Right. And that at its core is marketing. So if you want to change the behavior of someone, whether you're a government or whether you're a business, a small business, or whether you're a nonprofit, you have to understand, one, what they care about, two, address it, and three, provide a great experience for them while you do it. And all of that I see as marketing.
But I want to say this though. I think especially, I want to shout out Keystone. I want to shout out you, Eze Redwood. I want to shout out the Chamber of Commerce. I want to shout out Launch KC. I want to shout out KC Sourceling. Because these are incubators, these are resources that in Kansas City, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, you need to know to get to the next step, whatever you need. But I think in a city like Kansas City, we need more help from the government side.
Yeah.
If you look at Detroit, if you look at Illinois, if you look at Atlanta, you look at all these cities, you look at even Omaha, Nebraska, who is right next door. Look at Wichita, Kansas, right next door.
Yeah.
I think they have more when it comes to entrepreneurship than we have here down in Kansas City. What is missing in KC, and why is there no focus, I would say, primarily on entrepreneurship?
You know, during the pandemic, you saw the difference between the cities who understood that 70% of their net new jobs are coming from entrepreneurs and small business owners, and cities who didn't. Right? And so you could tell that not based on what they say, because every city's going to say they care about, you know, their entrepreneurs, blah, blah, blah. We're past that. You know,
you gotta go, what are they investing in? Though?
Exactly. Where's the money flowing? The money flows where their attention goes. Right. And so if we look at it from a perspective of their, what are their priorities? You know, we saw during the pandemic that they really, really, you know, wanted to do everything they could to shore up pretty much everything except entrepreneurship and small business. And so in this time where there's these restrictions that are greatly affecting, you know, entrepreneurs and business owners, you know, and directly impacting their businesses, you saw them say, hey, you know what? Like, we don't care enough about you to make meaningful allocations. You know, and so, yeah, they may toss $1 million here or 3 million there, you know, but they're getting hundreds of millions of dollars, you know, sometimes $300-400 million. And they care enough to give you half of a percent.
Yes.
You know, if
of their
that,
budget.
right?
If you even get that, you have to fight if you even get that.
And you have to fight to get that in a lot of cases, right? So what does that tell us about the value of it? And I think that it comes back to, do the cities understand with granularity where their tax revenues come from?
True.
You know?
I think you are on the money on that, because I think as a city like Kansas City, I know we have a lot of infrastructures when it comes to the Chiefs, when it comes to Royals, downtown, the hotels. Those bring in money. But when it comes to the bulk of what brings jobs in, what brings actual economy, boost economy, is entrepreneurship. Yeah. Because if one person starts a business, they can employ 5 people. 5 people can turn to 10 people, 20, 30, 40. And before you know it, a lot of people in the community are employed. But I think the challenge and the problem I think I see is giving it time. Giving it time to become that thing. It's like they want it right now because they already see the big businesses who want to come in. Yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% right. I think that what we see is that there's sometimes overemphasis on cranes, right? There's a overemphasis on bringing these big entities. Well, you can spend all of this money, let's say $10 million, paying for their utilities to be ran to the new building, you know, where this new headquarters is going to be, which is great. Like, we want headquarters, right? You know, but think about that 10 million, and think about, let's say you're paving the roads for them, right? You're servicing that sewer and water and electricity for them, if you're not running the lines and doing all the other stuff. Right. Well, okay, let's say that costs $14 million.
plus whatever, tax incentives are given, that's cool. Like it's a yes and. So I'm not anti whatever. Yeah. I think it's a yes and. But also think about, why don't we give that same energy to the entrepreneurs, right? Who small are businesses. Literally creating something from nothing. Right. And so we expect them to magically, we're like, okay, we can help them out and assist them in the process, but we expect entrepreneurs to, magically be able to do it all themselves. Birthing a business and birthing a baby have a lot of similarities. That's true. You're creating something from nothing. You're in pain. You're giving up your resources and you're not sure what's going to happen. You're in a vulnerable place. Right. And just like with creating anything else, that's when you need a community. Right. You can't do it on your own. We wouldn't tell a pregnant mother, oh yeah, you'll be okay. Just do it yourself. Why you don't need any help. We don't tell developers, you're okay, do it by yourself. No. Why would we tell the entrepreneurs who are creating 70% of the net new jobs, who are the number one employer of returning citizens, who if they don't get employed there have up to 65% higher chance of going back in, this time for a violent crime, regardless of whatever their first crime was. So they're literally helping us with crime. They're helping us with jobs, all the things that we say we want. And yet we don't want to support them. We say, hey, no, you're on your own. What sense does that make? And we're not going to support the organizations that help them be more likely to be successful. Right. Because when they have community, entrepreneurs have a 75% higher chance of success.
That's true.
And yet we don't give them any love. No, as a city.
You hit it on the money, because I think, and I've seen this from my experience, is just what you just said, is there is a lot of focus on the big corporations. And I think they forget that the big corporations was one time a startup, a small business, right? The big corporation needed help to get started. But if you don't let us get started, how will we be able to become that big corporation that employs 1,000 people? And that's what the focus should be, is the entrepreneurs who are employing people every single day. Because if you're a small business owner, you can probably employ someone who doesn't have the credentials because you believe in them and you know them as a person, as opposed to someone who is a corporation. Like, I need the top people who I don't even know anything about their story.
And one thing we've consistently seen is that, entrepreneurs and business owners who built their businesses themselves, or who still have that culture, they will work with their employees, right? They aren't just going to fire someone because they were late because they had a childcare issue, right? Or their kid got sick at school and so they had to leave, right? They work with them, they help them, and they reinvest in their communities at a much higher rate.
That's right.
So we have to at some point ask ourselves, how can we go all in to help the people who are going all in for us, who are putting their savings on the line for us, who are putting their 401ks on the line for us, who are putting their time, their energy, their health, because they can't afford health insurance in a lot of cases while they're building, right? And so how are we able to support the people who are literally building up our cities in America? Think about this. If you don't believe me, we put in the corporate headquarters. How many tourists go visit corporate headquarters? Right? How many corporate headquarters? And I love corporate headquarters. Don't get me wrong, right? I'm in economic development, so let's not say it. But if you have insert your standard business, right, into a neighborhood, is that corporation drawing in people from other parts of the city to spend money in that neighborhood? It's not, right? But your restaurants are neighborhood anchors. Your boutiques are, a lot of these other small businesses and some nonprofits are drawing people into your city. And while they're there, they're buying gas, they're buying food. So you're getting your sales tax. You're getting your gas tax. We have to think about it holistically like that.
The little things, I think I think we're coming to the end of the show, but before we get there, I wanted to say something I think it's very important, right? It's when you look at this small businesses, because I know elections are around the corner, right? And we're looking at people who are running for offices. What do you think as small business owners, or just people who patronize the coffee shops, who patronize the restaurants, what questions should we be asking the electors who are going to be coming into positions to know if they're for us or for the big corporations?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think if you think about it, a lot of times the middle class gets overlooked. True. The middle class is who's buying a lot of these products and services that we offer as small businesses and entrepreneurs, right? So you have to think about what's going to impact them most. Is losing healthcare going to impact them? Is the dissolution of the education department going to hurt them? Is losing Social Security, losing, people losing food stamps. So now there's more crime,
Right.
Like our tariffs on all products going to, hurt them because now like there's a lot of things that get imported. So now inflation is going to go rampant.
Right.
Right. So I tend to evaluate it on those criteria. I think that there's a lot of opportunities when you do that to say, okay, so maybe it makes more sense for us to, have candidates that invest in the social services
Right.
and continue on some of the policies that have been serving pretty well over the last 4 years, but make them better and learn from those mistakes. We don't
Right.
give people grace to learn from those mistakes.
Mhm.
And some people do, and some people do the exact same thing they've always done.
Right. I think, as we are coming to the end of the show, especially with people who are going into positions like what you just said, ask questions. Are they invested in the community of people who are, because there's something different. Say, hey, I don't want to name any companies, but I want to make new corporations to give 1,000 jobs to this community. But the truth of that is these big corporations, when they leave with those jobs. But when a small business starts, that small business owner employs 10 people, and those 10 people have a job and probably going to start their own business because they know the owner of that job, right? But I got 2 more questions for you.
Yo, I'm here. I'm here as long as y'all need.
Yeah.
Even though y'all skipped out on me earlier, and missed 4 meetings.
Shoot, I
can't a 7-meeting day. 8 meetings.
I'm going to tell you this. I don't have 24 hours and 24 hours a day. I'm going to tell you that right now. I only got 24 hours and I'm going to spend it the way I want to. But I want to ask you this. Yeah. 2 more questions I have for you. This is going to be a fun one for you. You went to Nigeria. You went to Abia State.
Yeah.
What was your experience? How was that for you going to Nigeria? What was that experience for you, especially coming from Kansas City and going there? What was that like?
Yeah.
What did you experience?
Yeah. It was crazy. I'm not gonna lie to you. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was my first time there, like as an adult.
Yeah.
Man.
It's a different environment.
There was one point pretty early on, I knew I was in a different place when we were on the highway.
Right.
It was rain season. We were coming out of the rain season.
Right.
And we were on the highway and we drove into a pothole and through a pothole. Right. It wasn't like we hit the pothole. You had to navigate the pothole. Like at one point I was eye level with the road. Right. I'm like, wow. Okay.
Cause that's what I thought about. It's like people don't really know. So Abia State and Aba, as I always tell the story, is like it's one of the underdeveloped cities and towns in Nigeria. A lot of people have talents there, but because they have opportunities and people don't really care about them, they don't get to come out and showcase that. Yeah. So being in that environment kind of changed your mindset. Being in Kansas, because you complain about potholes in Kansas City, but in Abia State, it's a whole different kind of pothole.
That's a different type, But it's true. And what you see there though is the power of community. And, because the people are all they got in some places, yes. Right? And so they have a saying, make it so, we make it so, right? And I think that that's really powerful.
Yeah.
I think that, in some ways, I'm reminded of that when I, come back to the States and I look at things like crime, right? Because, I think there's 2 sides of crime. There's a side where, are we creating community for people and the safety net for people so that when they fall on hard times, which almost everyone does, that they have a safety net to push them back up when they fall, right? And then the second thing is, I don't think that a lot of city governments who experience high crime right now understand that you're significantly less likely to commit crimes when you feel like you have options. You don't even have to be taking advantage of those options. You just have to feel like you have options, right? Like if you feel like you could work a job and make, multiple 6 figures or 6 figures, like you're probably less likely to break into that car. Right. And because you feel like you have options. And so I think that unfortunately we sometimes treat crime like the problem instead of the symptom And in my opinion, it is the symptom. The problem is our lack of willingness to do the hard things it takes to actually solve the problems, to make people's lives better, and to give them options, right? We need to create pathways to prosperity for people.
Right.
And if and when we do that, if and when we solve some of the problems that come when people fall and there's no net to catch them, then we will reduce crime.
Right. No, I think I always say this, is each one teach one, right? If I see Eze Redwood owns 25,000 businesses, I don't know how you do it, but that inspires me to know that's possible. And I can call on you, hey, I'm finding a hard time. I need a job right now, part-time, to get me going, right? So that gives me a vision. That gives me hope that I can have another option. But if I don't see everyone around me, no one has a job, no one has a business, I don't feel like I can get out because everything I see is the same thing. So it's creating that environment, because when you look at, I always say this, when you look at KC, truth, the dividing line, east, west of truth, totally different cities. And it's that same mindset of being able to keep you like in that captivity. But if you have things in place, especially I am going to be banking on small businesses. If you have small businesses in your area, in your community, that gives you hope that I know that guy who owns it. He's a small business owner. He's making this amount of money. I can do that too. So I think that's very key for that, right? But that's a whole episode. Thank you, Eze, for coming.
Wait, you had the second one. That was the first one.
No, I'm not done with the episode. I'm just saying thank you for all the insight, but I have one more question for you.
Yeah.
The second question that I want to ask you, and I think this is very important because I know you've been in the industry maybe for about 10 years now. What would you say is the biggest thing you've learned or the greatest advice you've gotten that has taken you through or changed your perspective on things you thought you knew, but has get you to this path of being successful as an entrepreneur?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that some of the things I had to really learn in order to be a successful entrepreneur and turn that corner is one, when you're an entrepreneur, you're in the people business, right? And a lot of times you think that, hey, I'm creating this product, I'm doing this service. No, you're in the people business. You have to work with getting people understanding their problems and delivering the solution in order to win the business. Right. And then you have to work with your teams in order to, understand their personalities and meet them with the type of management that their personality requires in order for them to be successful, giving them the right placement. You have to have the right people in the right place. But then you also have to really understand how to get the most out of them and give them that accountability so that they can understand what success is. And then you're clearly communicating what they need to do. And a lot of times we don't do that. And then we get frustrated with our people and we get frustrated with the fact that our product or service is inconsistent. Right. And so that training piece, that management piece, that understanding that we're in the people business is a critically important aspect. And the other thing that I think is really, really important if you want to be a successful entrepreneur is understanding that it's your job to solve a problem for the person that you're really looking to help. Right. And so if it's your job to solve a problem, that means understanding who that person really is, what their problem really is, what their fears are, what really moves the needle for them. And then looking back at yourself and your company and say, how can we create the right product at the right price with the right message and the right value proposition, and do it in a way that we're able to, continue to do this without me being tied whole to the business every single day. Cause so that I'm not working in the business 24/7. I'm able to step back part of that time and work on the business. But you got to roll up your sleeves and do the work. And like Austin Nesley says with, the author of 2X, who I love, you have to embrace the suck. And then you have to understand what's going to add value for the people you're serving and then create the systems to make sure that they get that value.
Right. I know I said I had one question, but you saying this give me another idea. I just realized you have 25 things you do on every single day, right? And I think everyone, if not anyone, myself, I want to know, how do you organize the chaos to make sure that you are successful in every single one? How do you organize everything you do and also be there and present every single time? How do you do that? What steps do you take? Maybe 3 things you do to make sure you stay on point with everything you do.
Yeah. That's a really good question. I think that for those of us who are really busy, we have to think of ourselves as athletes, right? So you might not run or jump or whatever, but you're an athlete, you're a brain athlete, you're a mental athlete, right? And you have to treat yourself accordingly.
Right.
So on days where I really got to get after it, like I don't eat red meat, I don't eat dairy, I don't eat carbs, right? Because those things all slow down your thinking and make you think slower, right? Because if you think about it, like even with red meat, like it's pulling more blood to your stomach to process it, right? So I think about it like, okay, let me start my day with some leafy greens, things that will energize me, and boost me up. And then I'm thinking, how can I oxygenate my brain? So,
I need oxygenation in my brain.
Yeah, we were talking about this earlier. I was like, bro, you messing up right now because you ain't got the oxygen. You got to oxygenate your brain.
Yes.
Right. But thinking about it, like, okay, your brain runs on oxygen, right? So how can you get more oxygen to your brain so you can think clearer longer? Right. And so maybe that's chlorophyll. Maybe that's sea moss for your nutrients, because if you're nutrient deficient, you're not going to be as effective on your feed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So part of it's treating. So I think the first part of really embodying that success mindset that's required to build a 7-figure business or just, do great things is understanding that you're an athlete and you've got to treat your body accordingly. I think that the second,
not to cut you off.
Yeah.
Do you ever get overwhelmed with everything? How do you manage being overwhelmed, feel like you are at a point where you're hitting a wall and you are, what is the word? You are too worked up with things. How do you reset at that moment to refresh and get new ideas? I feel like it can be all a lot. How do you get new ideas and refresh yourself to be centered?
Yeah, that's a great question. So, how do I refresh myself, keep from getting overwhelmed, especially when you're facing daunting tasks and daunting workloads?
Yes.
I think one is naps, right? That's major key.
Yes.
During the day,
That's
sometimes
key.
I'll do like refreshing showers.
Yes.
So Tony Robbins, has something that he says, where he takes a hot shower and then switches over to cold, right? After
I cold shower though, I hit different.
Yeah. And what doesn't circulate, it stimulates blood flow.
True.
Right. And so like, again, treating your body like an athlete, and as close to like ice cold water as you can get going from the hot, really stimulates it. And then I think that, that's where your network comes in.
Right.
And like I think that, the last piece to like really overcoming overwhelm and like overcoming like hard challenges. And all I do is solve hard problems, really.
True.
So what helps me is having a wide range of communities of types of people, types of friends that I can like go hang out with, pitch my problems to that I'm trying to solve and get their feedback. It may come from a mechanic. The best solution will make me think of something.
Right.
It may come from a marketer or a journalist or something like that. And so really having diverse groups of friends that you can pitch your problems to and not being afraid to say, hey, I'm trying to work through this. Right. And then the last thing is doing things that are pattern interrupts. So like, can you get out and do an adventure? Can you do something that's just different, that stimulates a different part of your brain so that you can activate that brain for, solving that problem?
Right. No, we got 1, health, because you're an athlete. 2, got to have a community. And 3, you need a distraction. I do PS5. I go on a run. I do things, play pickleball. So things that get me refreshed.
Although PS5, in all fairness, kind of sucks you in and you're not really actively thinking about the world. But if that's your escape,
that's your opinion,
cool.
Eze. I'm gonna leave that to your opinion.
Hey, man. I used to be a gamer, man.
I play me some FIFA.
You see me on some Madden. I'll pick up the sticks and teach you something now.
No, I don't do Madden, but I do FIFA. I'm gonna pick up some sticks and you can't beat me.
I was more of like a Counter-Strike, Halo.
No, I'm a FIFA guy, so I do FIFA all day. No one can beat me.
Yeah.
But Eze, thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for all the insights. I think this is going to be a really valuable episode for people who want to learn how to grow their business, scale it, and also think about that finance part. And also think not just the finance part, but the person itself, right?
Yeah.
Because entrepreneurs, I think, are one of the craziest people on earth. Just because you do a lot, you do the hard problems that no one wants to touch. You I can do that because I'm crazy enough. So thank you, Eze, for all the tips today. And for those who are watching from home, you know what time it is. It's been a wonderful episode. Share, like, let your people know. This is Studio Entrepreneur. I'm your host, Zeke.
Wait. Don't even share. Like, tag somebody.
Tag somebody.
Where's my camera at? Where's my camera? There's live cameras
right there.
Tag somebody.
Let them know.
Tag someone. Share this. Email it. Right? And if you want to be super successful and be an entrepreneur, ask yourself, what are you willing to sacrifice, right? Are you willing to go on a 2-week sprint where you cut out everything and all the distractions, go heads down, ask people how to be great at something, and then put your head down and do the work? Because if people are caught up on their TV shows, I don't even mentor them.
Yeah. You gotta be focused on your work.
Yeah. And then come up. And then you can come up, but do sprints.
Right. I have seasons where I cut off social media. People don't see me on social media for like 2 months, and they're like, where you at?
Yeah.
No, I'm working. I'm going to show you. I'm going to show you after 2 months.
Then you come up.
What I've been working on. And then after that 2 months, I see you every day on social media. Yeah, because I've been building, right?
Yeah.
I have been cultivating, because you got to cultivate in the dark. So when you shine, people are like, damn, you've been working? I didn't even know.
Can I give you one of my secrets?
Go ahead.
For productivity?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm gonna give you, this is an exclusive.
This is one thing with Eze. Eze is always on with some good stuff. Go ahead.
Bro, this is, my man Zeke, just from my man Zeke's people.
Yeah.
Right. And so, I heard this great quote from a mental health specialist who dealt with, a lot of different types of people. And he said, people who are creative, can accomplish anything they actually focus on. Right. And that keeps with me, because I'm like, I've got to focus in order to make this happen.
That's true.
So that's something I keep in mind. It's like, just do it now.
Thank you for that tip. That's important. But for those who are watching, Eze, we gotta let them go, Eze. We gotta let them go. They want to stay with us, but we gotta let them go. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
we gotta let them go. So
thank
you for tuning today to this another episode. You know what to do. Like Eze said, share, tag somebody, let them know we're here at Fired Up Studios. Let them know. It's your host, Zeke, and I'm going to see you in the next episode. Bye-bye for now.